Hi guys and welcome to Quiet Voice podcast channel. Tonight we step aboard an 80s sleeper train as a snowstorm gathers outside. Soft at first, then suddenly determined. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to lie in a narrow berth while the windows turn white and the rails vanish under winter? The platform lamps glow like tired moons, snow taps the roof, whispers against your coat, and gathers along the edge of your suitcase. Somewhere beyond the station canopy. The wind is already worrying at signal wires and chimney smoke. Inside the carriages, though, there is a hush so complete it feels borrowed from a library. Brass handles gleam under yellow lights. A porter checks a list with the seriousness of a priest. You smell coal dust, damp wool, machine oil, and coffee that has waited too long in a metal pot. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And as you climb aboard, comment where you are listening from. And what your local time is. Now, dim the lights. You step closer to the sleeper car, holding your ticket between gloved fingers. The paper is stiff from the cold, its corners slightly curled with melted snow. A gust pushes under the station roof, lifting powder from the platform into pale little spirals. You turn your shoulder against it, as if winter is a rude passer-by. The train waits beside you, long and dark green, or perhaps blue, depending on the railway and the mood of the lamps. Its metal sides sheen with icy streaks. The windows are already fogged at the edges, glowing with a faint amber warmth. A conductor stands at the open door, one hand resting on the rail. His cap is dusted with snow, but his posture remains calm and formal. He takes your ticket, studies it, and clips it with a small metallic bite. That sound is wonderfully final. You are committed now. No sensible person changes plans after the ticket punch has spoken. You climb the steps into the vestibule. The cold does not follow very far. It collapses behind you as the door shuts with a padded thud. Immediately, the air changes. It is warm, dry, and faintly dusty, and with that particular scent of older railway upholstery. There is soap from the washrooms, hot metal from hidden pipes, and wool from many coats drying together. The floor trembles beneath your shoes, though the train has not yet moved. Somewhere deep below, equipment hums like a patient animal. You pause in the vestibule while your eyes adjust to the dimmer light. A narrow corridor stretches ahead, carpeted in a pattern that could only belong to the 1980s. It has brown, orange, and cream shapes arranged with absolute confidence. Nobody knows why the decade trusted those colours so completely. Still, under the low ceiling and soft bulbs, the pattern feels strangely comforting. It says this train has carried thousands of sleepy people, and it is prepared to carry you too. Your suitcase bumps lightly against the wall as you move forward. The corridor is just wide enough for one person and an apology. On one side, compartment doors stand closed, each with a small number plate. On the other, the windows show a blurred platform, where snow keeps falling through the yellow cones of light. People outside look muffled and temporary. They stamp their feet, wave from behind scarves, and then dissolve into drifting white. You find your compartment number and slide the door open. It gives a soft resistance, then glides aside with a familiar railcar sigh. The room is small but not unfriendly. There is a lower berth made up with a blanket, a folded upper berth clipped against the wall, and a little ladder tucked near the door. A sink hides beneath a lid. Pretending to be furniture, a mirror, no larger than necessary, reflects your face in tired golden light. The berth is narrower than a bed at home, but wider than your doubts. You sit on the edge and feel the mattress give slightly beneath you. The blanket is rough, clean, and heavy enough to feel sincere. Your fingers pass over the woven surface, catching tiny fidgets. The pillow is thin, because railways believe comfort should be earned gradually. It rests in a white case that smells faintly of starch. Outside, a whistle sounds, low and rounded. It travels through the metal body of the carriage, through the window glass and into your chest. The station loudspeaker crackles, then releases a voice made half of words and half of static. You catch only fragments. Departure, weather, caution, passengers, the rest becomes part of the storm. Across the platform, a railway worker lifts a lantern and gestures towards the front. His orange coat is vivid against the snow. In the 1980s, sleeper trains still hold a special place in long-distance travel across many countries. They offer a moving hotel, a practical miracle, and a modest luxury for people who do not mind narrow corridors. Business travellers, students, soldiers, families, and quiet wanderers all share the same rolling night. You are one of them now. The carriage jolts once. A coupling tightens somewhere down the train with a deep clank. Another jolt follows. Gentler this time, like someone testing a sleeping giant. Then the platform begins to slide. At first, it moves so slowly that you wonder whether the train or the world has lost confidence. The lamps drift backward. A waiting man raises his hand. A woman in a red hat presses closer to the edge, her breath clouding around her face. Then the station roof slips away, and the storm takes the windows. Snow rushes past in diagonal lines, lit by carriage light and scattered into sparks. The train gathers itself and rolls forward into the dark. Rails sing beneath you. Not loudly, but steadily. The sound is layered wheel on steel. Carriage sway, pipe vibration, and the occasional click from somewhere behind the wall. It is not silence exactly, it is organised softness. You remove your coat and hang it on a small hook. The fabric is cold against your hand, damp along the shoulders. Your scarf follows, then your gloves, which you place near the heater. The heater is hidden behind a metal grill, radiating a dry warmth that smells faintly of dust. You touch the grill carefully. It is hotter than expected. The train, apparently, believes winter should be corrected with enthusiasm. There is a small table by the window. On it sits a folded timetable, a paper cup, and a little card explaining emergency procedures. The instructions are printed in neat, serious language. They seem to imagine a passenger who is calm, well-rested, and excellent at following diagrams. You smile at that, because almost nobody is excellent at diagrams in a snowstorm. You sit beside the window and watch the town slide past. Shops appear with shuttered fronts. A petrol station glows blue-white under fluorescent lights. Rows of houses pass, each with a private square of yellow window. You glimpse kitchens, curtains, and one television flickering in a room where someone has not gone to bed. Then the buildings thin out. The train crosses a bridge, and beneath it a dark river carries broken pieces of reflected light. The storm thickens beyond the glass. Snow presses against the window, melts, and forms clear trails that tremble with each movement. You lean closer and feel the cold radiating from the pane. Your reflection floats over the night scenery, a ghost wearing your face. Behind it, fences and trees appear only briefly, then vanish into white. A knock sounds at the compartment door, not alarming, just polite. You slide it open and find the sleeping car attendant standing with a clipboard. She wears a dark uniform and a cardigan beneath it, sensible against drafts. Her hair is pinned back, though a few strands have escaped. She asks whether you need the upper berth prepared, whether you would like tea later, and whether you understand where the washroom is. Her voice is calm from long practice. You answer, and she marks something on her list. The pen scratches softly. She mentions that the weather may slow the route. Not stop it, she says. Just slow it. There is a difference, and railway people respect differences like that. She gives a small smile, the kind that says storms are difficult, but passengers panic far too creatively. When she leaves, the corridor resumes its muffled life. A suitcase wheel squeaks somewhere nearby. A child laughs once, then is hushed by an exhausted parent. Doors slide open and closed with gentle wooden clacks. You hear a man clearing his throat in a compartment across the passage. followed by the delicate click of a radio being turned down. The sound becomes a whisper of music, soft enough to be more memory than tune. You open the small wash basin lid. The basin underneath is stainless steel, cold and tidy. A tiny tap releases a thin stream of water after a cough in the pipes. It smells metallic, and it runs colder than you expect. You wash your hands, feeling the day leave your skin in stages. The towel provided is small, square, and ambitious. It does its best. Historians still argue whether late 20th century sleeper trains should be remembered mainly as practical transport or as social spaces with their own fragile culture. The question seems too grand for this little compartment, yet you understand it while standing there. This is not simply a seat or a bed, it is a temporary room in motion, a private place inside a public machine. You are alone, but not isolated. You are hidden, but carried by many hands. The train leans into a curve, your hanging coat swings slightly on its hook, a spoon in someone else's cup taps twice, faint and silver. You place your suitcase under the berth, where it fits after one stubborn shove. The compartment now feels less like railway property, and more like yours. Not truly yours. Of course, the railway would object to that, but for tonight, you have a claim. You check the latch on the door and pull the little curtain across the window. The fabric slides along its rail with a dry hiss. For a moment, the storm disappears, replaced by patterned cloth glowing amber from the compartment light. Yet you leave a narrow gap. You want to see the snow. Of course you do. Humans are very brave when separated from weather by glass and central heating. A timetable tucked into the wall pocket lists stops through the night. Their names sound both ordinary and mysterious. Junctions, market towns, border stations, places where someone may board at 2 a.m. with a brown suitcase and a secret sandwich. The printed arrival times are confident, almost charmingly so. Outside, the snow has other opinions. A quirky little railway habit appears on the card beside the sink. Passengers are politely asked not to put shoes on the berth, not to smoke in bed, and not to open exterior doors while the train is moving. That last request feels unnecessary until you remember that railway history contains every kind of person. Somewhere, sometime, someone made that sentence necessary. The past is full of helpful fools. The train leaves the last bright edge of town. Darkness opens beyond the window gap. Snow no longer passes in city-lit sparkles, but in grey waves against black fields. Fence posts flicker by, evenly spaced, then vanish. A signal glows red in the distance, changes to green, and slips past your window like a small, approving star. The wheels settle into a deeper rhythm. This seems slower now, though perhaps you are simply becoming still. You sit on the berth and remove your shoes. The carpet feels firm and slightly scratchy through your socks. The carriage sways, making you lift one hand to the wall. It is not unpleasant. It is like learning the breathing pattern of a large creature. You fold your trousers carefully, or at least with sleepy optimism, and place your watch on the table. The light switch is near the pillow, set into a small panel with a reading lamp. There are buttons whose purposes are only partly clear. One might call the attendant, one might produce light, one might begin an international incident. You choose caution and touch only the obvious switch. The main light dims, leaving the reading lamp to cast a soft cone over the blanket. The atmosphere deepens. Warm air gathers near the ceiling, while a ribbon of coolness remains by the window. The compartment smells of linen, varnished wood, warm dust, and the ghost of old cigarette smoke buried deep in the walls. Many sleeper cars of that era still carried the memory of smoking passengers, even where rules had begun to change. Fabrics remember what timetables forget. You slide under the blanket, feeling its weight settle over your legs. The sheet is cool at first, then slowly accepts you. Beneath your shoulder, the mattress vibrates with the rail joints. Your body learns the pattern's small tremor, gentle sway. brief pause, then another tremor. Outside. The storm throws itself at the train without ever quite entering. A louder sound rises from below. The wheels cross points, clattering through a junction with busy precision for several seconds. The carriage shakes more sharply, the window rattles, the little table trembles, then the noise smooths again, and the train continues into the snowy countryside. You breathe out, surprised by how deeply you had been listening. Somewhere down the corridor, the attendant speaks quietly to another passenger. Her words blur into tone, reassuring and practical. A door slides. Footsteps pass your compartment and fade toward the next carriage. The train is not asleep. Not really. It is entering that overnight state where everyone lowers their voice, and even machines seem to understand. You look through the curtain gap one more time. Nothing appears except snow, darkness, and the occasional pale mound that might be a hedge. The world has narrowed to the carriage, the track, and the storm beyond it. You imagine the driver at the front, watching signals bloom from whiteness. You imagine the rails ahead disappearing as quickly as they arrive. It feels impossible and ordinary at once. That is the strange comfort of the sleeper train. It turns distance into drowsiness. It asks you to surrender control, but not dramatically, just enough to lie down while strangers guide you through weather, just enough to trust the rails beneath the snow and the staff moving quietly behind the scenes. The storm continues outside, restless and bright against the dark. Inside, the compartment holds its small, stubborn peace. Your breath slows, the blanket warms, the rails murmur under you like a long mechanical lullaby. You feel the train carrying you forward, not quickly, not perfectly, but steadily, and in that steady motion, your thoughts begin to soften at the edges. The last platform lights are long gone, the glass is cold, the pillow is thin, the night is wide, yet you are sheltered inside a narrow room on wheels, wrapped in heat, wool, and the old-fashioned confidence of steel. Snow may fill the fields and bury the sleepers beneath the track. Wind may crowd the signals and rattle the points, but here, for this quiet hour, you have a berth, a curtain, and a rhythm. That is enough. The compartment has become its own little climate, warmer than the corridor and quieter than the storm. You lie still for a while, letting your eyes adjust to the low glow of the reading lamp. The light does not fill the room. It simply gathers on the blanket, the table edge, and the polished metal latch. Everything beyond that soft circle belongs to shadow. You notice details that were easy to miss while boarding. A narrow luggage net stretches above the door, sagging slightly in the middle. A coat hook has been rubbed shiny by years of travellers hanging damp winter layers. The wall panel beside the berth has a faint scratch shaped almost like a river. Someone, sometime, may have made it with a suitcase buckle or an impatient ring. The sleeper car invites this kind of noticing. It gives you so little space that every object becomes important. The fold-away ladder, the wash basin lid, the tiny mirror, the button for the attendant, the ashtray sealed shut from an older age. Each piece has a job, and each job is modest. Nothing is decorative in the grand sense. Yet together, these small fittings create a private world. The train sways into another stretch of open track. Your pillow shifts half an inch beneath your cheek. The motion is not steady like a ship, and not smooth like a car on a new road. It is more complicated than that. It rolls, dips, corrects itself, and hums. The carriage seems to think while moving. You turn onto your side and listen. Beneath the wheels, the rails sing in long silver phrases. From somewhere near the ceiling comes a quiet tick, probably heating pipes expanding and contracting. The window gives an occasional dry rattle when a stronger gust strikes the glass. Far away, perhaps in another carriage. A toilet door closes with a soft clunk. The air carries several layers of scent. Warm dust rises from the heater. Clean linen rests close to your face. Damp wool hangs from your coat, gradually surrendering its coldness. Under everything is machine oil, faint but steady, like the train's hidden signature. You breathe it in and find it oddly calming. It smells like movement made reliable. A sleeper train in the 1980s is not exactly luxurious for most passengers. It is practical, compact, and slightly theatrical. In many countries, overnight rail services still compete with on-car trips and early flights. They offer the great promise of leaving one city in darkness and waking near another. It is a beautiful trick. You pay for distance, but you're also paying for permission to sleep through it. You sit up carefully, because sitting up too quickly in a berth is a small act of comedy. The ceiling feels close, your shoulder brushes the wall, the blanket slides to your waist. Letting cooler air touch your arms, you reach for the timetable and unfold it under the reading lamp. The paper crackles, sounding much louder than paper has any right to sound at night. The names of stations run down the page in tidy rows. Some stops are marked for passengers, others for operations, water, staff changes, or mail. That is one mainstream fact easily forgotten today. Many sleeper trains once carried more than sleeping people. They moved parcels, newspapers, letters, and sometimes urgent railway paperwork through the dark. A train could be hotel, post road, and workplace all at once. You imagine sacks being loaded in icy sidings. You imagine newspapers tied in bundles, headlines still smelling of ink. You imagine a station porter with frozen fingers, tossing mail into a van while passengers behind curtains dream of breakfast. The storm outside may seem to belong only to you, but the train is serving a larger night. Many small duties ride with it. The timetable becomes less clear as your eyes grow heavy. You fold it badly, producing a shape that no railway printer intended. Then you slide it back into the pocket and reach for the wash basin. A splash of cold water on your face might settle you, though settling you is hardly the train's problem. It is already doing excellent work. The tap complains before giving water. First a shiver, then a cough, then a narrow stream. You cup your hands beneath it, and the cold bites your palms. The metal basin smells clean and slightly mineral when you touch your wet fingers to your face. The chill wakes you in a bright, simple way. For a moment, the carriage sounds sharper. You dry your hands with a small towel. It scratches more than it absorbs, but effort counts. The mirror shows a face softened by travel, lamplight, and the faint unreality of night. Outside the window, snow scatters past the curtain gap like white sparks. You cannot see the ground anymore. You are moving through a tunnel made of weather. There is a small card near the berth explaining how to make up the bed properly. Its diagrams show a calm traveller lifting straps, securing blankets, and attaching a safety net for the upper berth. The illustrated person looks impressively organised. The real world, as usual, is messier. Bedding in a moving train requires patience, balance, and a willingness to forgive fabric. A quirky tidbit from sleeper car life comes to mind. In some older services, passengers learn to wedge shoes or books in specific places to quiet rattling doors. Regular travellers carried string, clips, or folded paper for this noble purpose. It was not official railway policy. It was folk engineering. Humanity has always found ways to negotiate with furniture. You test the door gently. It moves a fraction in its frame, enough to produce a tiny tapping sound when the train rocks. The sound is not loud, but once noticed, it becomes very interested in being noticed. You fold a corner of paper from an old envelope in your bag and tuck it carefully near the latch. The tapping stops. You feel absurdly accomplished. The compartment now seems more yours than it did minutes ago. Not because you own anything, but because you have solved one minor problem inside it. You have joined generations of travellers who quietly improved railway design with Scraps of paper. Engineers build the train, passengers complete the experience. That is probably not in the brochure. The storm presses harder against the carriage. Snow strikes the window in soft bursts, then slides away as water. Wind combs along the side of the train with a low, breathy sound. You feel none of its cold directly, but its presence shapes the room. The warmth inside seems warmer because the world outside is so thoroughly hostile. You dim the reading lamp a little further. The bulb gives a low amber glow, enough to show the outline of the blanket. Darkness folds around the corners of the compartment. Your fingers explore the texture of the wall beside you. It is smooth in places, rough in others, with a padded surface meant to soften bumps. The train designers knew that sleeping people are not graceful people. You lie back again and pull the blanket higher. The fabric touches your chin with coarse gentleness. Beneath your feet, the berth narrows slightly, encouraging you to remain civilized. Your knees learn the borders of the room. Your elbow rests against the wall. This is not a bed for dramatic sprawling. It is a bed for negotiation. A faint knock comes from inside the wall. Perhaps a pipe shifting, then another, softer than the first. You listen until the sound blends with the rhythm of the rails. The sleeper car is full of these private noises. They are not problems, they are reminders that comfort is being produced by metal, steam, electricity, rubber seals, and many decisions made long before you entered. Scholars still debate whether the decline of sleeper trains in some regions came mainly from faster air travel, changing labour costs, or the public's changing idea of comfort. It is never one reason. Of course, history rarely enters through one door. It slips through many. Wearing sensible shoes and carrying paperwork, still lying here. You understand why people resisted losing this kind of journey. You reach toward the curtain and open the gap a little wider. Snow fills the window completely, flashing close to the glass. Then, for a few seconds, the train passes a dark stand of trees. Their branches hold heavy white lines, and their trunks appear like black bars in a moving lantern show. A trackside hut flickers past, roof buried, window dark. Then the snow returns. The train begins to climb, or seems to. The engine note changes, deeper and more determined. The wheels grip and sing under the increased strain. You feel a slight pull through the carriage, almost as if the whole train leans into its work. Your body moves with it without deciding to. That is the surrender rail travel asks of you. The corridor outside grows quieter. The first restlessness of boarding has faded. No more suitcase wheels. No more polite questions about berth numbers. Only the occasional footstep passes now, careful and sock-soft, somewhere. A kettle lid rattles briefly, then settles. Someone coughs once. The cough vanishes into the upholstery. You think about all the sleeping compartments around you. Behind each door, a small arrangement of private life has taken shape. A student may be reading under a blanket with a paperback held close. A couple may be whispering about the delay they pretend not to mind. A business traveller may have hung a suit jacket with tragic optimism. A grandmother may have removed her shoes and placed them with perfect discipline beneath the berth. The train makes strangers parallels. You do not need to know their names. You simply share direction, weather, and velocity. There is something gentle about that. No one can hurry the storm by worrying harder. No one can make the rails less frozen by checking a watch. The whole carriage accepts the same pace because of steel and snow of open negotiations. A soft chime sounds somewhere in the car, maybe a staff signal or a door alarm from another vestibule. The noise is brief and oddly domestic, like a clock in a hallway. Then the attendant's footsteps pass again, firmer than the passengers. Professional footsteps have their own grammar. They say, "Yes, the night is complicated, but somebody is awake for you." You turn the reading lamp off. Darkness arrives gently. Not all at once. The compartment remains faintly lit by the corridor light around the doorframe and snow light at the curtain edge. Your eyes find Shape's table, hook, mirror, bag, blanket. The train continues its long conversation with the track. The storm replies against the glass. Now your sense of touch grows stronger. The pillow is thin beneath your ear. The sheet is warm where your body has rested. The carriage sway moves through your shoulder and hip. Your toes find a warmer patch near the end of the berth. Where heat has gathered under the blanket, you keep them there, wisely, even in grand historical journeys. Warm toes matter. Your breathing slows until it nearly matches the rhythm below. The rails give a pattern, but not a perfect one. That imperfection helps. A perfect sound can become irritating. This rhythm changes just enough to hold you without waking you. It clicks, hums, softens, and clicks again. The train is counting for you. Outside, the storm is still busy with its enormous, unnecessary drama. It piles snow on signals, smooths ditches into fields, and turns fence posts into quiet ghosts. It throws itself against the windows and races beside the wheels. Inside, the small paper wedge holds the door silent. The heater breathes. The blanket rests heavily. The compartment has accepted you. Sleep does not arrive like a curtain dropping. It comes as a slow loosening. Thoughts lose their sharp corners. The timetable becomes a patterns other than information. The storm becomes a sound rather than danger. Even the narrow berth begins to feel generous, because it asks so little from you. Stay warm. Stay still. Let the train do the travelling. You close your eyes fully now. Behind them, snow continues to stream across the dark. Rails shine beneath drifts, unseen but present, somewhere ahead. Signals glow through blowing white. Somewhere behind, the station is only memory and footprints already filled. Around you, the sleeper car moves steadily through the weather, carrying its warm compartments like lanterns. And in your small berth, with the latch quiet and the blanket tucked close, you drift toward the edge of sleep. You wake without knowing why, not fully, just enough to feel the train moving beneath you. The compartment is dark except for the thin line of light around the door. Snowlight glows faintly at the window curtain, pale and restless. For a moment, you do not remember where your shoes are. Then the rails speak under the floor, and the little room returns to you. Your mouth feels dry from the heated air. The blanket has twisted around one knee, as if it made a private decision while you slept. You free yourself slowly, careful not to knock your elbow against the wall. The train rocks under you with a slower, heavier motion now. It feels as though the wheels are pushing through a thicker world. You sit up and listen. The quiet is different. Earlier, the carriage had the nervous murmur of people settling down. Now it holds the deep hush of a place where most bodies have given up resisting sleep. The sound of the storm is louder by contrast. Wind slides along the windows with a grainy sigh. Snow taps, hisses, and sometimes strikes in soft handfuls. A small need leads you toward the corridor. Not an adventure, exactly. Human history often begins with tea, weather, or a washroom. You find your cardigan, slip your feet into your shoes, and open the compartment door with careful fingers. The little paper wedge remains in place near the latch, loyal and humble. You remove it and place it on the table like a tool worth respecting. The corridor light seems bright at first, though it is really soft and yellow. It runs along the ceiling in shaded strips, leaving the lower walls dim. The carpet narrows ahead in a long, gently swaying line. Closed doors stand on either side, each with its number plate and its sleeping secrets. You step out and slide your door nearly shut behind you. The air in the corridor feels cooler. It carries more mixed smells than the compartment did. There is polish from the wooden trim, soap from the washroom, warm breaks from somewhere below, and a faint trace of instant coffee. You also catch the scent of oranges, Sharp and sweet, someone has peeled one during the night, leaving invisible brightness in the air. You walk carefully, one hand grazing the wall rail. The train's motion changes the simple act of walking into a polite dance. Your feet adjust to each sway, your shoulder nearly brushes a door handle beyond the windows. Darkness presses close, broken by snow, racing sideways through the carriage lights. You're not outside, but outside is very interested in you. A curtain inside one compartment shifts. Perhaps someone is turning over. Perhaps someone is also awake, listening. You pass quietly, trying to make your steps softer than the train itself. This is one of the social rules of the sleeping car at night. Everyone becomes a monk. At least in theory, the theory is noble. The luggage sometimes disagrees. At the end of the corridor, a small vestibule connects this carriage to the next. The door has a window rimmed with frost at the corners. Beyond it, the rubber gangway moves and flexes, black folds opening and closing with each curve. The sight is slightly strange, like the train has a throat between its cars. You decide the washroom is the better destination. The washroom door is narrow and practical. Inside, everything is arranged with severe efficiency. A little sink, a mirror, a toilet with a metal handle, a hook for a coat, and a sign asking passengers to leave the space clean. The floor trembles beneath your feet. The walls hum. The mirror shows your face from an angle no friend would choose. You wash your hands and feel cold water shock your fingers awake. The soap is a small hard cake with a clean, institutional smell. It slips once, taps the basin, and stops. That tiny sound feels thunderous in the sleeping carriage. You dry your hands, straighten your cardigan, and pause while the train passes over a rough patch of track. The room shivers around you. Back in the corridor, you look through a larger window near the vestibule. The storm becomes a moving wall. Snow pours past in layers. Some flakes close and bright, others distant and grey. The train's own lights catch ice crystals in brief flashes. You see nothing of the landscape. Then suddenly a signal appears, green and hazy, floating in the white dark. It is gone in a breath. Mainstream railway history gives the conductor and attendant real importance on overnight trains. They check tickets, manage berths, assist passengers, coordinate with stations, and keep order in a moving building full of half-asleep strangers. Their work is both official and domestic. They are part guard, part hotel staff, part diplomat, and part keeper of the night. You notice a small service alcove ahead, its curtain partly open. Inside are stacked linens, paper cups, cleaning supplies, and a metal kettle secured by a strap. A clipboard hangs from a hook, pages held firmly by a clip. The handwriting on the top sheet is neat, with compartment numbers listed in columns. This tiny work corner supports the whole illusion of effortless comfort. A low voice comes from the next carriage door. The attendant is speaking with a man in a dressing gown, both of them standing near the gangway. His hair is flattened on one side. He holds a cup as though it contains medicine, which, at this hour, tea nearly does. Their voices stay low enough that the words blur into tone, concern, reassurance, weather, time. You wait at a respectful distance, pretending to study the window. This is another rule of railway life. Overhearing is unavoidable, but obvious listening is a crime against civilization. The man nods, sips, and retreats into his compartment. The attendant turns and sees you with no surprise at all. Night staff are difficult to surprise. They have met every version of tired. She asks if you need anything. Her voice is gentle but awake. You say you were only stretching your legs, which is true enough. She mentions that the storm has slowed the line near the hills. Snow is drifting across exposed sections and crews are checking points ahead. She says it plainly, without drama. Outside, the weather may be auditioning for catastrophe. Inside, railway language remains tidy. You ask whether delays like this are common. She gives a small, practical smile. In winter, she says. Common enough to respect, never common enough to ignore. That answer feels polished by experience. She adjusts the clipboard under her arm and moves down the corridor, stopping to check a door latch with 2 quiet fingers. Then she continues, her shoes barely sounding on the carpet. You stand alone again. The corridor sways. The yellow lights hum faintly. Behind each door, people sleep in layers of trust. They trust the driver, the signals, the track workers, the carriage heating and the attendant, and the old habit of railways continuing through weather. It is a lot of trust when you think about it, so you try not to think too dramatically. A quirky little practice belongs to long-distance rail travel in this era. Regular passengers sometimes brought their own alarm clocks, then placed them inside shoes or cups to make the sound louder. The method was not elegant, it was effective, and possibly alarming for neighbouring compartments. In a sleeping car, ingenuity often arrives wearing socks and carrying a plastic travel clock. The thought makes you smile as you continue walking. A muted snore leaks from behind one door, rises, stops, then returns with renewed confidence. Another compartment gives a murmur of conversation, too soft to understand. A child's toy, perhaps a small plastic car, sits abandoned near the wall. You pick it up and place it on the window ledge, where a parent may find it in the morning. The train begins to brake. It is subtle at first, a slight tightening through the floor. Then the wheel song lowers, and the carriage leans into the slowing motion. Outside, the snow seems to fall more vertically, though perhaps that is only because the train has lost speed. A distant light appears, then another. You're approaching somewhere. The corridor windows reveal a small station emerging from the storm. It has 1 low platform, a dark waiting room, and a lamp that flickers in the wind, snow piles against benches and signboards. The train rolls past very slowly, almost respectfully. No passengers seem to wait there, yet the place feels inhabited by all the journeys that usually touch it. You glimpse the station name, but snow has covered half the board. The remaining letters are useless and mysterious. This happens often in travel. The world offers you a clue, then immediately hides the answer. The platform slides by. A railway worker stands near a signal box, holding a lantern close to his coat. His face is shadowed beneath his cap-s. For a few moments, the train nearly stops. The brakes sigh. Steam or warm air drifts along the windows, turning to mist against the cold. You hear a door open somewhere farther down the train, then a brief exchange of voices. The outside air enters faintly through seals and vestibules, carrying snow, iron, and the bitter smell of frozen night. Historians remain uncertain about how passengers emotionally experienced delays in the golden age and late age of sleeper services. Timetables recorded minutes, but diaries and letters recorded moods. Some travellers found delays romantic, others irritating, and others deeply worrying. The same snowstorm could become adventure, inconvenience, or memory, depending on the person and the price of their ticket. The train waits just long enough for the stillness to feel strange. You realise how much of your comfort depended on motion. Without the full rhythm of the wheels, little sounds rise from the carriage. A pipe ticks, a berth creaks, the wind worries the window frames. Someone nearby turns over with a sleepy sigh. The silence inside is never empty. It is simply smaller. Then, with a soft pull through the couplings, the train moves again. One carriage tugs the next, and the motion passes through the line like a waking thought. Wheels begin their pattern. The tiny station slips backward into the white. The lantern becomes a dull orange point, then disappears completely. You remain at the corridor window a little longer, watching the storm close over the view. The attendant returns from the far end, carrying a folded blanket and 2 paper cups stacked together. She nods as she passes, not stopping this time. Her presence gives the corridor a calm centre. You wonder how many nights she has spent walking these narrow spaces while others slept, A whole working life can fit between midnight and dawn, unnoticed by rested people. You begin walking back toward your compartment. The corridor feels longer in the dark, not because it has changed, but because night stretches familiar distances. Your fingers trail along the rail. It is cool and smooth, worn by thousands of hands. At one door, a little sign has been turned to request morning tea. At another, slippers sit neatly outside, toes pointing forward like tiny, obedient dogs. The smell of oranges returns near your door. Perhaps it came from the compartment opposite. Perhaps a passenger there cannot sleep and is eating fruit under a blanket, performing one of the least rebellious acts imaginable. Yet in the deep night of a snowbound train, even an orange feels dramatic. Its brightness cuts through wool, metal, and winter. You slide your door open and step back into the compartment. The warmer air welcomes you at once. Your berth waits, rumpled and patient. The curtain gap shows only moving snow. You place the paper wedge back near the latch, restoring your small invention. The door becomes quiet again, a victory. You remove your shoes and sit on the berth, letting your feet feel the carpet's rough warmth. The train has found a steady pace, slower than a normal night, but determined. You hear the rails, the heater, the storm, and the softened life of the corridor beyond your door. The outside world remains loud with wind and snow. Inside, every sound has learned manners. You lie down and pull the blanket close. The corridor walk has cooled your hands, and the warmth under the covers feels almost luxurious. Your muscles loosen one by one. The train rocks gently, then more firmly, then gently again, somewhere beyond the glass. Branches bend under snow, somewhere ahead. Workers clear points and lamps shine through white air. You close your eyes, holding the image of that small station in the storm, a platform without passengers, a lantern held close, a name half hidden by snow. The world is full of places you pass while half awake, places that ask nothing except to be noticed for a breath. Then they fall away. The rails take over again. Their rhythm returns to the centre of your hearing, steady and low. The storm may fill the fields and trouble the signals, but inside your narrow room, quiet has gathered again. It settles over the blanket, the table, the latch, and your breathing. You let it stay. You wake to the smell of coffee drifting under the compartment door. It is not elegant coffee, not rich or mysterious, but it is warm and determined. In the night air of a sleeper train, that is nearly enough. The scent slips between linen, dust, and heater warmth, then reaches you with a quiet invitation. Somewhere down the carriage, cups are being filled. Your eyes open slowly. The compartment remains dim, with only the reading lamp turned low beside you. Snow still glows at the curtain gap, but the darkness has softened slightly. It is not morning yet. It is that hidden hour when night begins to loosen, though it refuses to admit anything. The train continues moving, slower than a confident express, but steady enough to soothe. A gentle knock touches the door. You sit up, pulling the blanket around your shoulders, and answer. The attendant slides the door open just enough to hold out a small tray. On it sits tea in a paper cup, 2 wrapped biscuits, and a folded napkin that has somehow survived the moving train without flying away. This feels like civilization. You thank her quietly. She tells you the dining car will serve a limited early breakfast soon. Limited, on a train in a snowstorm, sounds less like a warning and more like a poem. She adds that anyone awake may come along while the crew waits for updated track instructions. Her tone suggests patience. Not worry, patience is one of the railway arts. When the door closes, you hold the cup with both hands. Heat seeps into your fingers. The tea smells strong, a little tannic, and faintly metallic from the urn. You take a careful sip. It is too hot, because railway tea respects no tongue. You wait, breathing steam, while the carriage rocks you in places. Your body is not ready to be fully awake, yet curiosity has already put on its shoes. The dining car is calling from somewhere beyond the sleeping compartments. It promises light, voices, windows, and the strange comfort of strangers eating at unusual hours. You dress slowly, choosing warm layers and forgiving whatever creases the night has placed in your clothes. The corridor is active in a subdued way. A man steps out carrying a shaving kit, his face wearing the brave expression of someone about to meet a train washroom mirror. A woman in a wool skirt walks carefully with a book tucked under one arm. 2 children appear at a compartment door, wide-eyed and thrilled by being awake at the wrong time. Their father looks less thrilled. History has many faces. You move toward the dining car, passing through the vestibule where cold leaks around the edges of the doors. The gangway between carriages flexes under your steps. Rubber folds creak softly. Metal plates shift beneath your shoes. For a few seconds, you're between worlds. Neither sleeper nor diner, just a person swaying inside the train's narrow throat. Then the dining car opens around you with a warmer glow. It feels larger than it is because the ceiling seems higher and the windows are wider. Tables sit in pairs along the sides, each with fixed seats upholstered in vinyl. The vinyl shines under amber lamps and carries the faint smell of plastic warmed by many travellers. Metal cutlery rests in trays, quietly rattling with each rail joint. A steward near the counter nods you toward an empty table. He wears a white jacket with sleeves rolled slightly, as though formality is negotiated with fatigue. Behind him, a coffee urn steams. A stack of plates waits beside a basket of bread rolls. The menu board lists porridge, eggs, toast, tea, coffee, and soup. Soup for breakfast is bold, but weather changes everything. You slide into a seat by the window. The vinyl is cold for half a second, then accepts you. The table has a raised edge to keep plates from wandering during curves. This small design detail feels wise. Without it, breakfast would become a sport. The train sways, and the spoon near your hand gives a little silver tremble. Outside the wide window, the storm is more visible here. Snow streams past in sweeping sheets, lit from within by the dining car lamps. Occasionally the view clears enough to reveal a field, a fence line, or the black shape of a tree. Then the whiteness closes again. The glass feels cold even from a distance, and the air near it has a clean, frozen edge. A couple sits across the aisle, sharing toast and a newspaper open to yesterday's world. The print looks soft under the light. Across from them, an older man stirs porridge with enormous seriousness. Each circle of his spoon seems measured, philosophical, almost legal. He has the calm of someone who has taken many trains and learned not to argue with weather before breakfast. A younger passenger at the next table asks whether the delay is serious. The steward pours coffee and says the line is open, but the train may lose more time through the higher stretches. He says this while balancing 3 cups in one hand. That, you feel, gives him authority. Anyone who can discuss frozen points while carrying hot coffee deserves belief. The mainstream history of dining cars is full of practical beauty. Railways used them to make long journeys bearable, respectable, and sometimes memorable. By the 1980s, many services had simplified meals compared with earlier grand dining traditions, yet even modest food could feel luxurious when served at speed, under lamps, with winter pressing against the glass. Your breakfast arrives on a small plate. Eggs, toast, and a grilled tomato sit together with cheerful modesty. The toast is slightly too pale at one edge and too brown at another. It is, therefore, honest toast. Butter comes in a small foil packet, hard from cold storage. You press it against the toast and watch it soften unwillingly. The first bite tastes better than it should. Warm bread, salt, egg, and then the faint tang of metal cutlery meet in the sleepy air. The train rocks through a curve, and everyone pauses without meaning to. Cups tilt, plates shift, a jar of jam slides half an inch, then stops against the table edge. No one comments. The dining car has its own manners, and balance is one of them. The sound here is different from the sleeper. There is conversation, but kept low, cutlery taps plates. The urn sighs. The wheels beneath the dining car seem louder, perhaps because the space is more open. Every so often, a deep clank travels through the couplings, followed by a softer shudder. The storm adds its own brushing sound along the windows. A quirky detail belongs to railway dining culture. On some overnight services, regular travellers learned which side of the car gave the better view at breakfast, even in darkness. Others knew which steward poured the strongest tea, which table rattled least, and which soup was safest. This knowledge was not printed anywhere. It travelled by habit, gossip, and the noble science of repeated mistakes. You watch the steward move through the car with practised grace. He braces one hip against a seat during rough patches, pours without spilling, and remembers who asked for extra sugar. He is part waiter, part sailor, part stage performer. The dining car is his narrow theatre, and the storm outside is wasting its dramatic talent on people eating eggs. A woman near the far window unwraps a sandwich from home despite having ordered breakfast. This is deeply human. People buy food, then trust their own food more. The sandwich smells faintly of cheese and onion. Sharp enough to cross two tables, she catches someone noticing and gives a tiny shrug, as if to say that preparedness is not a crime. She is correct. The train slows again. The wheel rhythm lengthens. Outside, shapes become clearer, then almost still. You pass a siding where freight wagons sit half buried in snow. Their dark sides are streaked white, and their wheels vanish into drifts. A signal gantry rises above them, its lights blurred by ice. Beyond it, a small building shows one lit window. Someone is awake in there, working while everyone else debates toast. The dining car falls quieter as passengers look out. Snow has made the railway landscape strange and delicate. The ordinary equipment of travel looks ceremonial now. Points, posts, wires, lamps, ladders, sheds, and signs all wear white edges. The storm has decorated everything without asking permission. Nature is very rude that way, but occasionally talented. The train comes nearly to a halt beside the siding. Brakes sigh along the carriages. You feel the stop through your ribs more than your ears. The coffee in your cup grows still. For a moment, the dining car becomes a room placed in the snow, not a vehicle at all. The illusion is powerful. Then a gust throws powder across the window, and the train trembles. Two railway workers appear outside, moving along the track with lamps and heavy coats. Their boots sink into snow beside the rails. One bends near a set of points, while the other holds the lamp low. Their figures are blurred by the window and weather, yet their movements look careful and practised. The dining car watches them in silence. Historians still argue whether passengers in such moments understood the amount of labour hidden beneath safe rail travel. Timetables made the movement look simple, but storms revealed the human hands behind it. Track workers, signal staff, drivers, guards, attendants and cooks all supported the journey. The passenger saw only fragments, often through a fogged window, while eating breakfast. The older man with porridge lowers his spoon and says the workers deserve the real meal. Several people nod. Nobody turns it into a speech. Thankfully, the steward, passing with the coffee pot, says there will be soup for crew later if the kitchen can manage it. That small sentence makes the car warmer somehow. Food has always been a quiet language of care. A faint jolt runs through the train. The workers step back from the points. A signal changes ahead, its colour softened by snow. The engine begins to pull, gently at first, then with more certainty. The dining car resumes motion. Coffee trembles. Cutlery remembers its purpose. Conversations return in low threads, as if everyone has agreed not to disturb the train's concentration. You finish your eggs and wrap your hands around the cup. Warmth presses into your palms. Through the window, the siding fades behind you. The workers become shadows, then vanish into white. You feel grateful in a sleepy, unfocused way, not grand gratitude, just the quiet kind that arrives when someone else is cold so you can remain warm. The steward brings more tea without being asked. This is the sort of miracle people forget to record. The second cup tastes smoother because you are more awake, or because the first cup has lowered your standards kindly. Either way, it warms you. The biscuit on your tray softens when dipped, then almost falls apart. You rescue it with dignity, though barely. The dining car begins to feel like a temporary village. Passengers who would never meet in daylight now share weather, delay, and breakfast. A man offers part of his newspaper to the couple across the aisle. The children count how many times the lights flicker. A woman asks the steward whether the train has enough supplies. He says yes, unless everyone suddenly develops a heroic appetite. A laugh moves through the car, soft and brief. It does not break the calm, it deepens it. The storm can do many things outside, but it cannot quite defeat people sitting together over tea. There is comfort in that. Not dramatic comfort, not cinematic bravery, just bread, heat, voices, and lamps. You look again through the window. The snow seems endless, yet the train keeps opening a path through it. Steel wheels press along steel rails hidden under whiteness. Inside, plates are cleared, cups refilled, and napkins folded by sleepy hands. The dining car glows like a small floating room, crossing fields that appear and disappear in the storm. When you rise from the table, the vinyl seat releases you with a faint sigh. You steady yourself against the table edge and thank the steward. He nods, already turning towards another cup, another plate, another quiet need. The smell of toast and coffee follows you toward the vestibule. Behind you, spoons tap softly and voices drift low. You return through the flexing gangway, carrying warmth in your hands and breakfast in your body. The sleeper corridor seems dimmer now, more private after the public glow of the dining car. Snow continues to scrape lightly against the windows. Doors remain closed, but the carriage feels awake in small places. A kettle somewhere clicks, a slippered foot withdraws into a compartment. Your own room waits with its narrow berth, rumpled blanket, and curtain gap filled with white motion. You slide the door shut, place your cup on the table, and sit beside the window. The storm is still there, but it feels less lonely now. You have seen the dining car, the workers in snow, the steward with his coffee pot, and the little village of travellers sharing breakfast. The train rolls onward through the pale dark, carrying the smell of toast, wool, oil, and winter. You lean back against the wall, warmer than you were, and listen as the wheels find their rhythm once more. The train moves with a new caution, as though every mile ahead has become a question. You sit by the window, watching snow blur the glass until the landscape turns into pale motion. The carriage no longer seems to glide. It feels as if it is feeling its way forward wheel by wheel through a world that keeps being redrawn. Your cup is empty now, but it still carries a faint smell of tea. The paper has softened slightly where your fingers held it. You place it on the table and notice how gently it trembles. That tiny movement tells you more than the timetable can. The train is alive beneath you, working, adjusting, listening to the rails. Outside, daylight is trying to arrive, but the storm keeps folding it back. The sky has become a heavy grey sheet, low and close. Fields appear in brief patches, then vanish behind thrown snow. A line of telegraph poles walks beside the track for a while, each one carrying white caps on its cross arms. The wires sag under frost, dark lines drawn through the white. The heater breathes warmly near your feet. Its dry air brushes your ankles and carries the smell of dust, metal, and yesterday's wool. You touch the window frame and feel cold gathered there, seeping through the rubber seal. A thin bead of condensation runs down the glass. It pauses at the bottom edge, shivers with the carriage, and disappears into the sill. The train slows again. This time, though, the change is unmistakable. The wheel rhythm stretches farther apart, becoming deliberate and heavy. You feel the brakes engage with a soft pressure through the floor, somewhere beneath the carriage. Metal pads whisper against wheels. The sound grows into a low sigh, not harsh but serious. You pull the curtain wider and look out. The track curves along a shallow cutting where snow has drifted against the sides. Banks of white rise nearly level with the lower window edge. Small bushes poke through, bent under their loads, looking like defeated prunes. Beyond the cutting, a line of trees stands dark and stiff, their branches glazed with ice. A signal appears ahead, red and blurred by snow. The train rolls toward it with perfect obedience. That obedience is one of the deep facts of railway life. No matter how powerful the engine, no matter how impatient the passengers, the signal owns the moment. The train eases down, softer and softer, until the wheels give one final click and stop. Stillness enters the compartment. It is never complete. Of course, the heater hums, the storm scratches, a pipe taps somewhere behind the wall, yet the absence of motion changes everything. Your body had been leaning slightly into the travel, and now it has nowhere to go. You become aware of your hands, your breathing, and the narrowness of the room. A muffled announcement crackles through the carriage speaker. The voice is calm, but the speaker makes it sound as if it has travelled through a cupboard. You catch the important parts. The train is being held at a signal. Snow conditions ahead require inspection. Further information will follow. The sentence ends with a small burst of static that feels very final. There is a pause in the corridor, then a few doors slide open. People have a special talent for appearing exactly when told to remain patient. You hear low voices, slippers on carpet, the click of a latch. Someone asks whether anyone knows where they are. Another person answers with great confidence and no proof. That is also a travel tradition. You open your door and step into the corridor. The air there has cooled slightly, and the atmosphere has changed. Not alarmed, exactly, more alert. A line of passengers has formed near the larger window by the vestibule, each pretending not to be too curious. You join them with equal dignity. Everyone becomes a weather expert beside a stopped train. Through the window, the red signal glows in the white distance. Snow blows across the tracks in low streams, like smoke running along the ground. The engine is out of sight around the curve, but you sense it waiting ahead. The whole train holds itself behind that red lamp. A long chain of warm rooms halted by one small circle of colour. A man in a brown sweater says the snow must have packed the points. A woman with silver hair says it is probably a frozen signal relay. A younger passenger suggests a fallen branch. Nobody knows, which does not reduce anyone's confidence. The storm has provided a mystery, and humans cannot resist filling mysteries with opinions. The attendant moves along the corridor, answering questions with practiced calm. She says the driver is in contact with control and railway staff are checking the route. She avoids promising a time, which is wise. Snow has a talent for making liars out of clocks. Her presence keeps the corridor from becoming dramatic. She is warm authority in sensible shoes. A mainstream fact becomes clear in this pause. Railway timetables depend on an entire system beyond the train itself. Signals, points, dispatchers, maintenance crews, station staff, and communication lines. In winter, that system must manage visibility, ice, drifting snow, and mechanical parts that dislike freezing. A train is not simply late, it is waiting for the network to become safe again. You return to your compartment and leave the door partly open. The corridor voices become a soft background murmur. You sit on the berth and take out the timetable again. Its printed times seem almost comic now, not because they were foolish, but because they belong to a calmer universe. The train should have passed 3 stations by now. Instead, it rests in a snowy cutting, considering its options. The paper smells faintly of ink and old pockets. You trace the route with one finger, naming places you may not reach on time. Timetables in the 1980s often carried a certain public confidence. They were printed, folded, distributed, and believed. Yet every railway worker knew the truth underneath. A timetable is a promise made under normal conditions. Weather is not obligated to sign it. The train gives a small shudder. Somewhere ahead, power changes, or brakes adjust, or a coupling settles. Everyone listens. Then nothing follows. The corridor quiets for a few seconds. Disappointed by physics, a child asks whether the train is stuck forever. An adult replies that forever is unlikely. It is a reassuring answer, if not legally precise. You lean back and feel the wall against your shoulder. The padded surface is warm where your body touches it and cooler beyond. Your socks rest on the rough carpet. The carriage smells different while stopped. Without motion pulling air through seals and vents, scents gather more clearly. Tea, polish, wool, warm wiring, and a faint trace of breakfast toast linger together. Outside, the red signal remains. It glows like an ember in the snow, patient and absolute. You watch it until your thoughts slow. The storm changes shape constantly, yet the signal does not. It is almost comforting, even though it refuses passage. Not every delay is an enemy. Some delays are the shape caution takes when it wants you alive. A quirky piece of railway lore fits this waiting moment. In some cold regions, crews use simple brooms, heated tools, or even old kettles of hot water to help free frozen equipment. The exact methods varied, and official manuals preferred better procedures. Still, winter railway work has always mixed engineering with stubborn practicality. Snow rarely respects elegance. The speaker crackles again. This time the announcement says the route ahead is being cleared and the train will proceed when authorized. The voice thanks passengers for their patience. That phrase is found everywhere in transport history. Usually at the precise moment patience is being tested. You smile at the politeness of it. The railway has apologized to your blanket. A slight change passes through the train. It begins at the far front, invisible but real. The engine note rises faintly. The heating hum seems to shift. The couplings tighten one by one, sending little nudges through the carriages. Cups tremble on tables. Luggage nets creak. Passengers in the corridor stop speaking mid-sentence. Then the train moves. Slowly. Very slowly. The wheels turn under you with a heavy, careful roll. The red signal slides past the window and disappears behind falling snow. Ahead, the track curves through the cutting, its rails dark and wet between ridges of white. The train does not rush. It proceeds like an elderly cat crossing a polished floor, dignified but deeply suspicious. You stand at the window as the landscape creeps by. A maintenance worker appears near the line, wrapped in heavy clothing, his face hidden by scarf and cap. He holds a long tool at his side and watches the carriages pass. Snow collects on his shoulders. His eyes follow the train, checking each wheel set, each underframe, each sign that movement is tough. Passengers lift hands from behind the glass. Some wave. The worker raises his tool slightly in reply, which counts as a full speech in such weather. Then he's gone, swallowed by the storm. You feel the odd intimacy of seeing someone for only seconds and trusting their work completely. The train gathers a little speed, then slows again. This becomes the pattern. Move, listen, brake, wait, move again, and the wheels click over the points with unusual care. Each junction sounds louder than usual, because you know it matters. The carriage sways less gracefully at this pace, with small side movements that make the fittings tap and settle. Scholars still debate how railway passengers understood technology during difficult journeys. Some saw trains as symbols of modern control over distance and nature. Others experienced every delay as proof that nature remained stubbornly in charge. Sitting in your warm compartment while snow holds the timetable hostage, you suspect both views are true. The machine is powerful, the storm is not impressed. A wider view opens beyond the cutting. The train enters a stretch of open country where wind has swept the fields into long white ridges. Snow crosses the track in moving veils. Fence posts stand half buried, showing only their dark tops. A farmhouse appears far away, its windows lit weakly through the storm. Smoke from the chimney flattens sideways before vanishing. The carriage lights flicker once, not enough to alarm anyone, but enough to pause your thoughts. The heater continues its steady breath. You hear a few voices in the corridor. Lower now, more resigned. People are adjusting their plans in private. Meetings will be missed. Connections will become uncertain. Someone's welcome at the far station will have to wait. The storm rearranges lives without filling out forms. You sit again and take out a small notebook from your bag. It feels natural to write something, though you have no great statement to make. You note the red signal, the snow cutting, the worker with the long tool, the smell of tea in paper cups. Your pencil moves slightly with the train's sway, giving each line a wavering honesty. Perfect handwriting would be suspicious here. The act of writing steadies you. Travel often turns people into collectors of fragments. A phrase from an announcement, a face at a window, a station name partly hidden, a cup warming cold hands. These are not grand historical events, yet social history is built from such pieces. Most lives are not recorded in treaties or battles. They are carried in small rooms through weather. The train slows beside another signal, this one yellow. Its light shines softly through the snow, less severe than red, more cautious than green. You do not know the exact meaning in this railway system, but you understand the mood. Proceed carefully. Expect uncertainty. Keep your eyes open. It is good advice for trains and people. Outside, a cluster of railway houses appears near a junction. Their roofs sag under thick snow. A bicycle leans against a wall, almost buried. One window shows a lamp and the silhouette of a person standing with a mug. For a few seconds, you and that person share the same storm from opposite sides of glass. Then the houses fall away. The train continues, not with speed, but with intention. The timetable may be wounded, but the journey is not defeated. Inside the sleeper car, people return to compartments, close doors, pour tea, fold blankets, and complain softly. Complaining softly is another form of coping. It gives the weather a little respect while refusing it total victory. You stretch out on the berth without undressing again. The carriage rocks under you, slow and careful like a lullaby being played from memory. Snow strikes the window in bursts. The yellow signal fades behind. Ahead, the rails remain hidden under pale drift and dark steel, but the train follows them anyway. There is comfort in that hidden certainty. You cannot see the route, yet it exists. You cannot command the storm, yet you are carried through it by people, signals, tools, and habits built over generations. The world outside is chaos, but not meaningless chaos. It is being answered, quietly and patiently, one cautious mile at a time. You close your eyes for a moment, not quite sleeping. The timetable rests folded on the table, humbled but still useful. The heater warms your feet, the storm worries the glass. Beneath everything, the wheels continue their careful turning, carrying you onward through delay, snow, and the soft persistence of the railway night. The train has settled into a slow-working rhythm, and you begin to notice the people keeping it alive, not the passengers with cups and blankets, though they are part of the scene too. You notice the railway subway moving through the storm-lit hours with quiet purpose. Their work is not loud, it is almost ceremonial. You sit near the compartment door, listening to the corridor beyond it. Footsteps pass with different weights and meanings. A passenger shuffles uncertainly, pauses, then shuffles back. The attendant walks with a firm, even pace, one hand occasionally brushing the wall rail. Farther away, a heavier step crosses the vestibule. Accompanied by the soft clink of keys or tools, the air has changed again. It holds the warmth of the heater, but also a sharper draft from the carriage ends. Every time a vestibule door opens, winter sends a thin finger down the corridor. It carries the smell of snow, wet metal, and cold rubber from the gangway. The scent vanishes quickly, swallowed by linen and polish. Yet you feel it on your skin. You slide your door open a little. The corridor glows amber, narrow and gently swaying. The windows are pale with frost at their edges. A small line of condensation runs down one pane, shaking with the movement of the car. Outside, the snow is no longer falling prettily. It is driving hard across the train, restless and grainy. A railway employee passes carrying a hand lamp and a radio. Boo. His coat is darker than the attendant's uniform and dusted with fine snow across one shoulder. He must have come from a vestibule or a stop near the line. The lamp throws a soft circle on the carpet. The radio gives a brief crackle, then a voice too broken to understand. He nods as he passes, and you nod back. This is the entire conversation, but it feels sufficient. Some people carry enough purpose that speaking would only slow them down. He continues toward the next carriage, braces one hand on the doorframe, and steps through the moving gangway with practiced balance. In the 1980s, railway communication was changing quickly, yet much still depended on human judgment. Radios, telephones, signal boxes, printed orders, and direct staff coordination all shared the work. A modern traveller may imagine systems as invisible and automatic, but overnight rail travel still relied heavily on people awake in the dark. Machines carried the train, but people interpreted the night. You rise and step into the corridor, drawn by the sense of hidden activity. The train rocks under you, and your hand finds the wall rail. Its surface is cool, worn smooth by decades of palms. You walk slowly toward the vestibule, feeling the carpet give slightly beneath your socks and shoes. Each step must negotiate with the rails. At the carriage end, the air is colder. The door window shows the gangway shifting between this car and the next, black folds glistening with frozen moisture. Snow has gathered in tiny white ridges along the outer seams. The storm beats against the metal with a dry, sand-like whisper. You can feel the cold radiating through the door before touching it. A small notice near the handle instructs passengers not to open the exterior door. It sounds stern but sensible. Outside is not merely weather now. It is force, speed, ice, machinery, and darkness. The notice has the calm tone of someone who has seen human curiosity make poor decisions. You keep your hands respectfully to yourself. From beyond the gangway comes a murmur of voices. The employee with the lamp speaks to another staff member near a service area. You cannot hear much, only fragments about speed restrictions, snow clearance, and the next staffed station. Their voices remain measured. Railway speech has a way of pressing panic flat until it becomes information. You turn back before you intrude. The corridor feels warmer by comparison, almost domestic. A compartment door and an elderly woman looks out with a blanket around her shoulders. She asks whether anything is wrong. You say the staff are checking the route, and the train is still moving carefully. She nods, satisfied by motion more than explanation. She tells you she used to take sleeper trains as a young teacher. Her voice is soft, and her hair is pinned neatly despite the hour. She remembers sharing compartments with strangers, guarding sandwiches in paper bags, and waking at junctions where milk churns stood on frosty platforms. You listen because the corridor has become a place for small histories. She smiles at the memory of older sleeping cars with polished wood and stubborn windows. Then she adds that every train had at least one mysterious rattle nobody could find. That, she says, proved the train had character. You agree, because it would be rude to challenge such wisdom at this hour. A quirky railway tidbit comes from the world she describes. Some experienced travellers carried small rubber doorstops, not for doors, but to steady luggage, silence panels, or keep washroom items from sliding. These were unofficial tools of survival. They never appeared in glossy railway advertisements. Still, they may have saved more sleep than many expensive innovations. The elderly woman retreats into her compartment. Her door closes with a soft wooden sound. You remain in the corridor for a few breaths, looking at the row of closed doors. Each person here has a reason for travelling. Some reasons are urgent, some ordinary, some private. The train holds them all without asking for explanations. A sharper sound runs through the car, a metallic clatter from below. The wheels pass over points at low speed. The carriage shifts left and then steadies. You hear the engine effort deepen somewhere far ahead. Snow brushes the windows in bursts. The yellow lights overhead flicker very slightly, then hold. Nothing dramatic happens. The absence of drama feels earned. The attendant approaches carrying a tray of used cups. She has added a scarf at her neck, tucked neatly into her uniform. Her face shows fatigue, but not complaint. You step aside, and she thanks you. The cups knock gently against one another as she passes. Their papery sound seems oddly intimate, like evidence of many small comforts delivered. You ask whether she ever sleeps on these journeys. She gives a quiet laugh and says not much when the weather behaves like this. Then she explains that staff take rest when duties allow, but winter nights often stretch thin. Passengers need updates. Berths need attention. Doors need checking. And stations require coordination. A sleeper train is asleep only from the passenger side. Her words stay with you as she moves away. You imagine the train as two different worlds occupying one body. In one, people lie under blankets and drift through dreams. In the other, staff monitor radios, check heating, count passengers, handle delays, and keep doors secure. The same wheels carry both realities through snow. Historians still argue whether railway labour is best understood through technology, discipline, or care. The official records emphasise rules, schedules, and operating systems. Personal accounts often reveal kindness, improvisation, and pride. Standing in the corridor while the storm claws at the glass, you feel how inseparable those things are. Safety is a rule, but it is also a habit of attention. You return to your compartment and sit with the door open. The train continues past unseen fields and cuttings. The storm outside creates a soft roar, never quite loud enough to overpower the rails. Your blanket lies folded on the berth, still holding the shape of your body. The cup on the table has tipped against the raised edge but not fallen. The table has earned its keep. The speaker crackles again, and a staff voice announces that the train will run under caution until the next major station. Passengers are asked to remain inside the train and take care when moving around. The voice sounds slightly clearer now, perhaps because everyone has become better at listening. The message ends with thanks, then a small click. A man across the corridor opens his door and mutters that caution is preferable to heroics. Then he closes it. You admire the sentence. It has the shape of philosophy and the warmth of sleep deprivation. The train seems to agree, rolling onward with careful gravity. No heroics. Then just steel, snow, and procedure. You pull your coat from the hook and feel that it has dried. The wool is warm now, a little stiff at the shoulders. You fold it over your lap, not because you need it, but because its weight comforts you. Outside the window, a dark shape emerges, a signal box standing beside a junction, its windows glowing yellow. For a few seconds, it looks like a lantern house in a frozen sea. Inside the signal box, you glimpse movement. A figure leans over a panel or desk, then turns toward the passing train. In older railway systems, signal boxes were places of concentrated attention. Staff worked with levers, bells, telephones, track diagrams, and later panels depending on the region and period. Their decisions guided trains through junctions, delay, and hazards. The signal box slips behind you, but the image remains, a warm room above the snow. a person awake while others sleep, a map of tracks under lamplight. It is not romantic in the soft postcard sense. It is practical, repetitive, and responsible. That may be a deeper romance, though the signal staff might roll their eyes at such poetry. The train slows past a row of maintenance sheds. Snow piles against their doors. A small tractor or railway vehicle sits near one shed, its roof coated white. The yard lights cast blue shadows over the drifts. You see rails branching in several directions, though their lines partly hidden, even in stillness. The railway seems complicated, like handwriting under frost. A crew member steps into view near the vestibule outside, holding the rail with one gloved hand. He checks something at the carriage connection, then disappears from sight. The cold must be fierce there, between cars, where wind finds every gap. You feel it only as a draft under the door. He feels the storm directly on his face. Your fingertips rest on the window ledge. The surface is cold and slightly damp. You withdraw them and tuck your hands under the coat. The train gives a soft tug as it leaves the yard behind. Lights scatter, blur, and vanish. Open countryside returns, blank and wind-carved. The sound of the wheels deepens as speed rises a little. You think of watchfulness as a kind of shelter. Not shelter like walls and blankets, but shelter created by attention. The driver watches signals, the attendant watches passengers, the signal staff watch routes, the maintenance crews watch the track. Because they watch, you're allowed to lie down. Because they stay awake, you may become drowsy again. A final footstep passes your door. The attendant has returned, this time without the tray. She pauses to ask whether your compartment is warm enough. You say yes. She gives a small nod, checks the latch with one glance, and continues. That simple question lands gently. Warm enough is not a grand concern, but it is the concern that matters in a snowstorm. You close the door, leaving the corridor to its quiet duties. The compartment gathers around you again. The lamp, the berth, the folded coat, the window, the cup, the muffled storm. All of it feels smaller than the railway outside it, yet somehow complete. You place the paper wedge near the latch and smile at its little importance. The train moves through the storm with its hidden company of watchers. Radios crackle, lamps swing, signals glow through snow. Somewhere ahead, the driver reads the line one cautious section at a time. Somewhere behind, staff and passengers settle into their roles, some sleeping, some serving, some simply listening. You stretch out on the berth and let your body loosen. The wheels speak in a low pattern beneath you. The storm remains busy outside, throwing snow against glass and steel. Inside, the warmth holds. The watchers keep watch. Your eyes grow heavier as the train carries its small world forward, guarded by quiet hands in the dark. Your compartment grows quieter as the working sounds of the train settle behind the walls. The storm still presses against the glass, but your attention turns inward now, toward the little mysteries of the sleeping car itself. This narrow room has become less like a bed and more like a puzzle box. Every hinge, strap, latch, and panel seems to hide a small decision. You sit upright with the blanket around your waist, studying the fittings as though they might reveal a secret timetable. The upper berth rests folded against the wall, held by metal brackets. Its underside is smooth, with a fabric strap tucked neatly along one edge. A ladder stands clipped into a recess nearby, thin and practical. It looks light, but also slightly judgmental. Your fingers find a little chrome catch beside the berth. You do not pull it, because a falling upper bed in the quiet night would create a historical event no one requested. Still, you imagine the attendant releasing it with one practiced motion. The berth would descend, blankets would appear, straps would secure, and two strangers might suddenly share a room with intense politeness. Sleeping cars have always depended on careful design. In limited space, railways had to provide beds, luggage storage, washing facilities, lighting, heating, privacy, and emergency access. By the 1980s, many designs mixed older railway habits with newer materials. Laminated panels, vinyl surfaces, compact sinks, and fluorescent corridor lighting all worked together. Comfort was engineered by centimetres. You lift the lid of the wash basin again and look at the metal bowl beneath. It seems too small for the importance it carries. Morning faces have hovered over it, razors have tapped against it, toothbrushes have rolled toward its drain during curves. A compartment sink turns private routine into a feat of balance. Civilization, apparently, is being able to brush your teeth at speed. A small cabinet door sits beneath the basin. You open it gently and find only plumbing, a spare paper cup, and an emptiness that smells faintly of metal and disinfectant. Not treasure. Sadly, not a forgotten jewel case, not a spy document, not even a heroic biscuit. Just pipes and shadows. History is often less dramatic than furniture suggests. You close the cabinet and listen to the train. The rhythm has become steadier, though still careful. Snow brushes along the carriage side with a sound like paper being moved across a table. Every now and then, the wheels pass through a hollow-sounding section of track, and the floor gives a deeper note. The compartment answers with tiny creaks from hidden joints. You run your hand along the wall panel beside the berth. It feels warm near the heater and cool near the window. The padding has softened from years of shoulders, elbows, and sleeping heads. Beneath the fabric, you can sense the hard structure of the carriage. The room is gentle only because metal has allowed it to be gentle. A quirky passenger habit belongs exactly to this sort of place. Some regular sleeper travellers carried their own pillowcases, not because the railway linen was terrible, but because scent matters when sleeping among strangers. A familiar pillowcase could turn a rattling compartment into something closer to home. It was a small rebellion against institutional laundry, a soft rebellion, naturally. You smile and press your cheek to the railway pillow, which remains thin but loyal. It smells of starch, warm cotton, and the faint stored scent of many wash cycles. Perhaps a private pillowcase would improve it. Perhaps nothing could improve it except a less ambitious mattress. Still, there is charm in its inadequacy. The pillow does not flatter you. It simply exists. Your eyes drift to the luggage net. It holds nothing now, but it has the look of a thing that has suffered greatly. Nets in sleeper compartments have carried hats, books, coats, fruit, packages, and bags packed by people who believed cloth could defeat gravity. You reach up and touch it. The cords are rough against your fingers, stretched but resilient. There is a little printed warning near the net, advising passengers not to place heavy items overhead. The warning is sensible, but history suggests it has been ignored with confidence. You imagine a suitcase sliding out during a curve and landing with the moral force of bad planning. The sleeping car teaches many lessons. Some arrive from above. The train enters another curve, and your hanging coat sways on its hook. A faint smell of dried wool rises from it, mixed with the sharper scent of cold air trapped in the fabric. The hook itself is polished at the bend, worn by countless coats. This small mark is social history in miniature. Not a monument, but a trace of hands, weather, and habit. Historians still debate how much attention should be given to ordinary objects in transport history. Some focus on technology, COVID, companies, and national systems. Others study tickets, seats, menus, blankets, toilets, signs, and the awkward little spaces where people actually lived. In a sleeper compartment, the argument feels easy to settle. The objects are the journey. You stand carefully and test the sliding door. It moves on its track with a soft wooden rush. The lock turns with a small click. You test the chain, which allows the door to open only a narrow gap. Its links feel cold and firm. Privacy here is mechanical, modest, and slightly theatrical. You're alone because a little chain says so. Through the gap, the corridor lies empty. The yellow lights make the carpet look almost golden. The train sways, and shadows from the window frames move gently across the walls. Somewhere distant, a door closes, then another. The sound travels through the car like a polite rumour. You shut the door and lock it again. A small panel near the head of the berth includes buttons for light and assistance. The labels are worn. Their letters softened by fingers. One button glows faintly in the dark. A tiny red eye of reassurance. You wonder how many times it's been pressed for tea, blankets, confusion, lost tickets, or the universal crisis of being unable to lower a berth without losing dignity. The storm outside grows louder for a few minutes. Wind strikes the broadside of the carriage, and snow rattles hard against the glass. The train leans slightly into the gust, then steadies. Your compartment seems to shrink around you, not unpleasantly, but protectively. The walls feel nearer. The blanket feels heavier. The light feels warmer. You pull open a small wall pocket and find a safety card, a faded route leaflet, and a card for ordering breakfast. The breakfast card has little boxes for tea, coffee, rolls, jam, and boiled eggs. It is wonderfully optimistic. It assumes morning will happen, eggs will exist, and someone will read your handwriting. Railways are built on faith of many kinds. The route leaflet contains a map drawn in bold lines. It simplifies the geography so thoroughly that mountains, towns, junctions, rivers, and weather all behave themselves. The line curves gracefully across the page. Real railways are never so tidy. They pass through budgets, politics, mud, tunnels, land disputes, engineering compromises, and sheep with poor judgment. Maps are soothing because they hide the arguments. You fold the leaflet and set it beside the cup. Then you notice a small vent near the floor, partly blocked by the hem of your bag. You move the bag aside and warm air flows more freely around your ankles. The effect is immediate and deeply satisfying. You have improved the heating by 6 inches of luggage management. Engineers may applaud quietly. The train begins to pass through a wooded section. You see it in fragments through the curtain gap. Branches reach close to the window, heavy with snow. Some scrape softly along the outside of the carriage, creating a delicate brushing sound. It is not threatening, only intimate. The forest seems to be touching the train with cold fingers as it passes. For a moment, the compartment light reflects your face over the dark trees. You look transparent, layered with snow and branches. Travel at night often does that. It turns the window into both mirror and world. You're looking out and in at the same time, very philosophical for someone in socks. A sharper scrape sounds against the glass, and you flinch. A branch has brushed the window more firmly. Snow falls from it in a bright sheet, exploding across the pane. Then the train moves on. Leaving the branch behind, your heart settles. Outside has reminded you that it is real, not merely scenery. You reach for the blanket and fold it tighter around your legs. The fabric is rough against your palms, but comforting in its weight. Railway blankets were designed for durability more than tenderness. They had to survive laundering, passengers, spilled tea, and possibly philosophical despair. This one has survived enough to feel trustworthy. Another odd secret of sleeper cars lies in the sounds passengers learn to identify. The click of rail joints, the hiss of brakes, the clunk of couplings, the murmur of pipes, the flutter of curtains, and the knock of a loose latch each develop meaning. A first-time traveller hears noise, a regular hears vocabulary. Tonight you are learning the language slowly. The train slows near another junction. Points clatter beneath you with a careful branching rhythm. The compartment shifts left, then right. Your cup slides a fraction across the table and stops against the raised lip. The map leaflet flutters from the movement of warm air. The upper berth gives one quiet creak, as if dreaming of passengers it once carried. You wonder about those passengers, a young nurse travelling home after a long shift, a salesman with sample cases wedged under the bed, a mother feeding a baby in the bluish light before dawn, a student reading by the lamp until the words blurred, A retired couple sharing sandwiches and pretending the narrowness was romantic. All of them used these same little inventions. The sleeping car is full of hidden social agreements. You keep your voice low. You close doors softly. You share washrooms without leaving chaos behind. You do not stare into open compartments. You accept that slippers in corridors are a temporary public costume. Society remains intact because everyone agrees to be slightly embarrassed together. The speaker gives a faint pop, but no announcement follows, just a soft breath of static. Then silence. Perhaps someone touched a switch. Perhaps the system considered speaking and changed its mind. You wait, listening, but the train only rails and storm. Sometimes no news is the kindest update. You open your bag and find a small paperback. The cover bends easily in your hands. You read a few lines under the lamp, but the carriage movement makes the words drift. It is not nausea, only drowsiness, pretending to be literature criticism. The book rests on your chest, rising and falling with your breath. Its pages smell of paper, glue, and old rooms. The storm slackens for a brief spell, and the outside world appears more clearly. Snow-covered fields stretch beside the track, pale and uneven. A frozen pond reflects the grey sky like dull metal. A farm gate stands half open, held in place by a drift. Nothing moves except the train. The stillness beyond the glass feels enormous. Then a cluster of lights appears far off, possibly a village. The houses look tucked down into the snow, their roofs smooth and soft. Smoke rises from one chimney and is immediately flattened by wind. You imagine kitchens warming, kettles beginning, someone waking without knowing that your train is passing at the edge of their morning. Their day and your night overlap for a few seconds. You turn back to the compartment and its humble machinery. The sink lid, the hook, the net, the folded berth, the reading lamp, the lock, the raised table edge. Each item has become familiar. The room is not luxurious, but it is intelligent. It has thought about your body, your bag, your thirst or your fear, your sleep, and your tendency to drop things. That is a strange kind of care, not soft care. Perhaps not the care of cushions and fireplaces. It is railway care, practical and compact, built into screws, straps, handles, and signs. It assumes you are tired, cold, mildly confused, and carrying too much luggage. This assumption is fair. You turn the lamp lower until the compartment becomes amber and shadow. The storm returns to the window, more sound than sight. You slide the paperback beside the pillow and settle under the blanket again. The little room creaks, hums, and sways around you. Its secrets are not dramatic, but they are generous. The train carries these compartments through snow like a string of small, private boxes. Inside each one, objects hold people in place. A latch keeps a door quiet. A hook dries a coat. A berth receives a tired body. A lamp softens the dark. Outside, the storm continues its wide performance. Inside, design, habit, and warmth keep answering it in tiny ways. Your eyes close while the wheels speak below. The sleeping car surrounds you with its worn intelligence, its old fittings, and its patient little comforts. You feel the narrow room moving through the white morning, carrying you not only across distance, but through the quiet history of how people learned to rest while the world rolled on. A hard scrape wakes you in the dim carriage, sharper than the usual brushing of snow. Your eyes open to amber light, rumpled blanket, and the pale window. For a second, everything is still inside your mind. Then another scrape drags along the outside of the train, long and dry, like fingernails across frozen wood. You hold your breath. The train continues moving, but slowly. The wheels grind beneath the floor with a deeper note than before. Snow rushes past the glass in thick grey bands. Something outside taps the window twice, then vanishes. A branch, perhaps a clump of ice. The storm is tossing little messages at the carriage. none of them well written. Your compartment remains warm and almost absurdly calm. The lamp glows softly beside the berth. The blanket rests across your knees. The little table trembles, but nothing falls. The raised edge holds the cup and folded leaflet in place. It is strange to feel so sheltered while the world outside behaves like a cupboard full of angry weather. You sit up and pull the curtain further open. The glass is cold enough to fog your breath when you lean near it. Outside, the scene has turned wild and close. Snow no longer falls from sky to ground in any respectable direction. It spins, lifts, drops, and rushes sideways. The train lights catch flakes in sudden silver flashes before darkness swallows them. Branches lean near the track, heavy with snow. Some have bent low under the weight, and the train passes so close that their tips rake softly along the carriage side. Each scrape travels through the wall and into your spine. It is not dangerous in itself, but it sounds ancient and animal. The forest is touching the train again, less politely now. The wheels give a rough metallic cry beneath you, not loud enough to be alarming, but enough to remind you that steel can complain. The track may be packed with snow, slush, or ice at the edges. The train moves through it under caution, and every rotation seems to carry weight. You feel the effort in the carriage floor, a slow muscular vibration. Railways have long used snowplows, flangers, heated points, patrols, and speed restrictions to manage winter. The exact tools depend on country, route, and budget. In the 1980s, many lines still relied on a blend of machinery and human inspection. The train might seem alone in the storm, but it belongs to a wider winter system. A low bang sounds from somewhere beneath the carriage. You flinch, then hear passengers stirring in the corridor. Doors slide open. A voice asks what that was. Another voice answers that it was probably ice thrown up from the track. The word probably does a lot of work there. It enters the corridor wearing confidence it may not fully deserve. You put on your shoes and open the door. The corridor is dim, warm, and busier than expected. Several passengers stand near windows, wrapped in cardigans, coats, and blankets. Their faces are pale in the reflected snowlight. Nobody speaks loudly. The train has created a shared instinct for quiet, even when everyone wants to ask the same question. You join them at a window near the end of the car. Outside, the storm swirls so densely that the train seems suspended inside moving chalk. Then, for a brief stretch, the view clears. You see trees close to the track, their branches bowed under white loads. Snow bursts from them as the train passes, striking the glass in soft explosions. Another scrape runs along the carriage. A woman beside you whispers that it sounds like the woods want a ticket. Someone behind her gives a sleepy laugh. Gentle sarcasm survives even in poor visibility. It is one of humanity's better features. The laugh fades quickly, but it changes the corridor air. The weather remains dramatic, and the passengers remain human. The attendant appears from the far end, holding the wall rail as the car sways. She looks composed, though her hair has loosened more around her face. She explains that overhanging branches are brushing the train where snow has pulled them down. The crew is aware. The train is moving at restricted speed, and passengers should stay inside their compartments if possible. Her words settle the group. Information makes fear smaller, not gone necessarily, but smaller and better dressed. People nod, retreat, and slide their doors shut. You remain near the window a moment longer, watching the whiteness flicker with shapes. The outside chaos has become visible in fragments: branch, drift, signal, shadow, branch again. The train rounds a curve, and the view suddenly opens to a slope below the line. Snow has filled the hollow so completely that fences appear only as dark bumps. A small stream runs black through the white, not fully frozen, its surface flashing under the carriage lights. Wind chases loose snow across the slope in twisting ribbons. Then darkness closes again. The carriage leans, the gangway creaks, the wheels strike a rougher patch, and vibrations move up through your feet. You place a hand on the wall. It feels warm inside, cold beyond, a boundary between two very different realities. Outside is motion without comfort. Inside is comfort inside motion. That distinction feels important. A quirky winter railway practice comes to mind. In some places, staff watched for snowpacking under carriages, because compacted snow and ice could build around brake gear or steps. Passengers rarely imagined such hidden lumps travelling with them. Yet winter adds weight in secret places. Snow is not just scenery, it is also maintenance paperwork waiting to happen. You return to your compartment, leaving the door open a few inches. The scraping sounds grow less frequent as the train leaves the densest trees. Still, the wheels keep their grinding undertone. You sit on the berth and rub warmth back into your hands. The corridor settles again, one door at a time. The car returns to its strange, practiced hush. The storm presses against the window with a sound like sand poured over glass. You watch flakes race upward for a moment, lifted by wind around the carriage body. The physics are simple enough, but at this sleepy hour it looks impossible. Snow should know which way down is. Apparently, it has entered a rebellious phase. A distant whistle sounds from the front of the train. It is muted by snow and distance, yet it carries through the car with a mournful steadiness. The note seems to travel ahead into darkness, warning whatever may be there. Crossings, workers, animals, or simply the storm itself. You feel the sound in your chest, low and rounded. Then it fades into the wheels. Historians still argue whether travellers remember dangerous weather more as fear or as beauty once the journey ended. Memory has a generous editor. It trims discomfort, warms the lighting, and adds significance to every cup of tea. Yet in the moment, your senses record both truths together. The storm is beautiful. The storm is inconvenient. The storm is not asking for your opinion. The train slows to a crawl near a stretch of exposed embankment. You can tell by the change in sound. The wheels no longer sing. They press and grind. Wind hits the side harder, making the carriage give tiny shivers. Through the window, you see nothing below the embankment except blowing snow and a few blurred lights far away. A sudden gust throws powder across the glass so thickly that the window turns white. The compartment disappears into reflection. You see your own face, the lamp, the blanket, the small table, all floating in brightness. Then the snow slides away, and the dark countryside returns. It feels as if the outside world has blinked. You reach for the safety card and hold it in your lap, not because you need it, but because hands like occupation. The card lists instructions in calm print, emergency exits, alarm procedures, staff assistance. Everything is orderly on paper. The storm outside would probably find the layout charming. Very neat, very official. Absolutely not its problem. The carriage gives a larger jolt. Your shoulder touches the wall, and the cup on the table jumps slightly. Then the motion smooths. You hear one startled voice in the corridor, followed by a reassuring reply from another passenger. Nobody opens a door this time. The train has taught everyone the difference between a sound and a crisis. That is useful knowledge. The heater continues working with heroic dullness. Warm air moves around your ankles, dry and steady. The smell of warm dust seems stronger now, perhaps because your senses have sharpened. You notice the starch of the sheet, the faint tang of metal from the window frame, the old varnish near the door. Inside has become a world of small smells, all of them peaceful by comparison. Another branch brushes the carriage, lighter than the first. It sounds almost like a broom sweeping along the outside wall. You imagine snow shaking loose and spinning into the train's wake. The thought is oddly satisfying. The train does not defeat the storm. It simply passes through, borrowing a narrow path and leaving disturbed whiteness behind. You lie back but keep your eyes open. The ceiling is close above you, dim and stable. Beneath it, the train's motion writes itself through your body, slow sway, small tremor, deeper grind, pause, repeat. The pattern is less smooth than it was, but it remains steady enough to trust. Chaos outside, grammar inside. A faint smell of smoke or hot brake dust reaches you, then disappears. It may come from braking on the grade, or from warm equipment meeting cold air. The scent is brief, mineral and dry. It reminds you that the train is not magic. Despite appearances, it is a long machine, working hard in hostile weather, and machines have smells when they labour. You open the curtain all the way now. The window frames a world reduced to black, white, and occasional railway colour. A signal glows yellow, then passes. A trackside marker flashes red in the snow. The lights look unreal, like small thoughts surviving inside the storm. Each one appears, performs its duty, and vanishes. The line enters another wooded stretch, but the branches stand farther back here. Snow still falls from them as the train passes, shaken by vibration. It drifts down in curtains, soft and pale. For several seconds, the violence of the storm seems to soften into something almost graceful. Then wind returns, and the white curtains tear apart. You feel sleep pulling again, but curiosity keeps you near the window. There is a particular fascination in watching shelter prove itself. The walls hold, the glass holds, the heater holds, the staff continue their quiet rounds, the train keeps moving. None of it is guaranteed in a grand cosmic sense, but all of it is happening. That is enough for the body to believe. A child's voice in the corridor asks whether the snow can bury the whole train. An adult answers that the train is much too stubborn for that. It is not a technical answer, but it is a comforting one. Trains do seem stubborn. They are long, heavy, and full of people who have already paid to arrive somewhere. The wheels strike points again, plurally. Metal knocks beneath you in a careful sequence. A junction must be near. Through the window, you glimpse several rails splitting and crossing under snow, dark lines stitched through white. The train chooses one path with calm inevitability. Choice feels dramatic when humans make it. When rails make it. The decision sounds like clatter. The storm begins to loosen slightly, though only slightly. Snow still flies, but the flakes look larger now, less like grit and more like torn paper. The train gathers a modest increase in speed. The wheel sound rises from grinding to a low hum. Passengers remain quiet, perhaps not wanting to tempt the weather by noticing improvement too loudly. You let the curtain fall halfway. The compartment dims again. The chaos outside continues, but now it feels less like an assault and more like a vast, restless presence. The train has become a lantern moving through it. Warm and narrow, stubborn and ordinary. You're inside that lantern, held by walls, blanket and rhythm. Your breathing slows as the rails settle beneath you. The hard scrapes have faded, the rough grinding softens, snow still races beyond the glass, but the carriage holds its calm. You close your eyes, and for a while you can hear both worlds at once, the storm writing chaos across the countryside, and the sleeper car answering with a hush so steady it feels almost kind. A pale light gathers behind the curtain, weak at first, then slowly stronger. You open your eyes and find the compartment filled with a grey morning glow. The lamp beside you is no longer needed, though it still burns softly, loyal and outdated. The storm has not ended, but daylight has made it less mysterious. What was invisible in darkness has become visible trouble. You sit up slowly, feeling the stiffness of sleep gathered in your shoulders. The train is still moving, though not quickly. Its rhythm has changed again. The wheels no longer grind with the same effort, but they do not sing freely either. They turn in a thoughtful pattern, as if the line ahead keeps offering small objections. The window is fogged near the bottom. You wipe a circle clear with the side of your hand, and cold dampness touches your skin. Outside, the world looks buried. The trackside banks rise high and uneven, carved by wind into soft ridges. Fence posts show only their upper halves. Trees stand in white coats so thick they seem carved from chalk. The countryside has lost its usual edge. Fields blend into roads, ditches vanish. Walls become smooth humps under snow. A barn appears with one side almost hidden by a drift, its red paint barely visible through frost. The train passes it slowly, offering only a few seconds of witness. Then the barn slips behind white air. You reach for your shoes and dress with the quiet patience of someone who has learned the carriage's movements. One hand rests against the wall while you pull on a sock. The floor sways, the heater breathes, and how the coat hook clicks faintly against its bracket. Your body has become better at this little dance. Travel teaches balance in humble ways. The corridor outside carries the sounds of waking. A door slides open. A kettle rattles in the service alcove. Someone yawns without grace and then tries to hide it with a cough. Paper cups knock together. A child asks whether it is morning yet, which is a fair question in such grey light. Morning has arrived, was, but not very convincingly. You open your door and look out. The sleeping car seems softer now, its night secrecy slowly becoming ordinary. Passengers step out with flattened hair, folded newspapers, and expressions of mild historical suffering. Everyone looks as if the train personally creeped them. Nobody looks elegant. This is comforting, because elegance at dawn in a sleeper car would be suspicious. The attendant moves along the corridor, carrying tea and coffee on a narrow tray. She has the steady concentration of someone performing a difficult task in a moving hallway. Steam rises from the cups and vanishes into the cooler air near the windows. She offers you tea, and you accept with both hands. The cup warms your fingers immediately. The tea tastes stronger than expected. It carries a bitter edge, but also the kindness of heat. You stand near the window with other passengers, all of you facing the snow like villagers examining a flood. Conversation begins in soft fragments. How late are we? What station comes next? Will connections wait? Has anyone seen a proper sunrise? The answer to that last one is clearly no. Outside, the train passes a level crossing. The road is nearly hidden, and its barriers are striped with snow. A small car waits at a safe distance, roof thickly coated, headlights glowing yellow in the grey. The driver inside is only a shape. For a moment, you and that person look toward each other through weather and glass, both delayed by the same white kingdom. Railways in snowy regions often depend on layered winter routines. Ploughs clear major routes, staff inspect vulnerable points, and dispatchers manage trains under caution. Passengers may see only delay, but delay can be evidence of a safety system working. The train's slow progress is not failure. It is procedure made audible through wheels. The corridor speaker crackles. A voice announces that the train is approaching a larger station where information will be updated. The train is running significantly late due to severe snow conditions. Passengers with onward connections should speak with staff on arrival. The message is calm, practical, and entirely uninterested in anyone's personal schedule. Snow has already voted. People react in little ways. A man sighs and folds his ticket wallet with unnecessary firmness. A woman smiles at her children and says they may have an adventure breakfast. The children approve of this interpretation. Another passenger asks whether there will be a telephone at the station. That question belongs very much to the 1980s, when rearranging plans required coins, queues, and patience. You sip your tea and watch the line widen into a railway approach. More tracks appear beside yours, dark ribbons through snow. Points and signals stand half buried, wearing white on every horizontal surface. A row of freight wagons sits motionless in a siding, their couplings crusted with ice. A maintenance vehicle rests beyond them, orange paint bright against the morning grey. A quirky detail from that era drifts into your thoughts. Some passengers carried printed address books and little cards of important telephone numbers, tucked beside tickets. Missing a connection could mean hunting for a payphone, finding change, and calling someone who might not answer. Delay was not simply inconvenience, it was a small administrative quest, with cold fingers. The train passes a row of back gardens near the town. Snow has transformed washing lines into drooping white strings. A greenhouse roof is almost completely covered, with only one triangular pane showing. A dog runs along a fence, barking silently behind the window glass. Its enthusiasm seems unreasonable in this weather, but dogs have their own laws. The first platform appears slowly. It is almost empty, except for railway staff in heavy coats and a few bundled passengers waiting under the canopy. Snow's been cleared in narrow paths, leaving walls of white along the edges. Lamps glow even though morning has come, because the sky is still dull and heavy. The station nameboard is readable this time, black letters on a white field. The train glides in with a long sigh of brakes. Snow beside the platform is stained grey where boots and wheels have disturbed it. You feel the final slowing through the floor, then the soft stop. For a moment, everyone waits. Then doors open along the train and cold air moves through the vestibules. It brings the sharp smell of snow, diesel, wet wool, and platform grit. You step down briefly, just to feel the station under your feet. The platform surface is icy where grit has not reached. Your shoes crunch on salt and packed snow. The air touches your face with clean severity, waking you more completely than tea. Around you, passengers stretch, smoke, consult watches, and look toward notice boards. No one knows enough yet, so everyone looks at everything. The station building gives off warmth through its open doorway. Inside, you glimpse a ticket window, a wooden bench, a clock, and a cluster of people near a public telephone. The telephone has become a small altar of delayed plans. One person waits with coins ready. Another writes a number on the back of an envelope. Technology is helpful, but rarely graceful in a queue. The attendant stands near the sleeper car steps, helping passengers down and warning them about ice. Her breath clouds in front of her. She still looks composed, though tiredness sits around her eyes. A driver or guard speaks with station staff farther along the platform, their caps bent close against falling snow. Papers are exchanged, then folded away quickly before the weather eats them. Historians still dispute how ordinary travellers judged railway reliability in difficult decades. Some measured it by punctuality alone. Others valued whether staff communicated clearly, whether warmth was maintained, and whether the journey continued safely. Standing on the snowy platform, you understand the difference. Being late is irritating. Being abandoned would be worse. This train has not abandoned you. A station announcement echoes under the canopy, distorted by metal roof and winter air. It mentions delays, revised arrivals, and waiting rooms. The words scatter across the platform. A child laughs as snow slides from the canopy edge in a soft crash. Several adults turn sharply, then relax. The child looks delighted. Children are excellent at finding entertainment in infrastructure failure. You climb back into the sleeper car, grateful for the warm stepwell. The vestibule smells of wet rubber, coats, and cold iron. As the door closes, the platform sounds soften immediately. Inside again, you feel the difference between public winter and private shelter. Your cheeks tingle from the cold. Your hands wrap around the teacup, now nearly empty. The corridor has become livelier. Passengers compare information gathered from staff, boards, and pure speculation. A man says the train will leave soon. A woman says it will wait for a path behind a plough. Another person says breakfast may reopen. That final rumour receives the most interest. Civilization follows food with admirable honesty. You return to your compartment and sit facing the window. The platform lies just beyond the glass, close enough to study. A porter pushes a cart through snow, wheels leaving crooked tracks. 2 pigeons shelter under a bench, looking offended by the entire climate. A railway worker scatters grit with a shovel, each throw landing in a dark fan across the white. The train remains at the platform longer than expected, yet this pause feels different from the signal stop in the night. Here, there are faces, voices, lamps, and the possibility of news. The station turns delay into a place. You're not simply suspended in snow, you are held for a while among other lives. A passenger from another carriage walks past your window carrying a paper bag. Steam escapes from its folded top, perhaps rolls from the station buffet, perhaps something fried and glorious. The smell does not reach you through the glass, but imagination is cruel enough. Your stomach remembers breakfast as a distant event from another age. The engine gives a low vibration through the train. Staff move briskly along the platform. Doors close one by one, each with a heavy, padded sound. A whistle blows, clear in the cold air. The platform figures step back. The train answers with a gentle tug, and the station begins to slide away. People at the windows watch as though leaving a place they had lived in for years, not minutes. The town opens beyond the station. Houses line the tracks, their gardens buried, their windows bright. You see a woman sweeping snow from a doorstep, a man scraping ice from a windscreen, and a child dragging a sled along a pavement. Normal life is continuing, but slowly, wrapped in hats and inconvenience. The train passes through it like a warm secret. Beyond the town, open fields return. The snow has eased into larger, slower flakes. Visibility improves enough to see low hills in the distance, pale and softened. The sky remains grey, but a little brightness gathers near the horizon. It is not sunlight exactly, it is a promise in rehearsal. The train gains speed cautiously. The wheels begin to sing again, not fully, but with more confidence. You feel the change in your body. The carriage sway becomes smoother. The table trembles less sharply. The curtain moves gently rather than nervously. Around you, passengers settle again, accepting this new phase of the journey. You fold the blanket, tidy the cup, and place the route leaflet back in the wall pocket. The compartment looks almost orderly, though it still carries the traces of your night-creased pillow. Damp window circle, dry coat, and the little paper wedge near the latch. These are the artifacts of being carried through snow. Small things, but honest. You look out as a frozen village passes in the distance. Its church tower rises above clustered roofs, dark against pale fields. Smoke lifts from chimneys and thins into the morning. The train does not stop there. It simply carries you past, giving you a few quiet seconds of someone else's winter. Then the village fades behind a line of trees. The delay remains, but it has changed character. It no longer feels like an interruption. It feels like the journey's true shape, stretched by weather, staff, signals, stations, and the patient resilience of everyone aboard. People adapt, cups are refilled, plans are revised, snow falls, steel continues. You lean back and let the growing daylight rest on your face. The storm is still present, but it has lost some of its authority. Inside the sleeper car, warmth holds steady. Outside, the buried world slowly reveals itself. Field by field, roof by roof, signal by signal. The train moves on through the white morning, delayed but not defeated, carrying its passengers toward arrival at the pace winter allows. The train enters its final stretch with a softness that feels almost apologetic. Snow still covers the land, but the storm has begun to lose its sharp edges. The wind no longer throws itself against the carriage with the same restless force. It sighs instead, dragging loose flakes across the fields in slow, pale threads. You sit beside the window with your coat folded across your lap. The compartment has become familiar in the way temporary places sometimes do. The berth knows your weight. The table knows your cup. The curtain knows the exact gap you prefer for watching snow. In a few hours, perhaps even sooner. None of this will belong to you. For now, it holds. Outside, the world appears in longer views. White fields stretch toward hedgerows and low hills. Farm tracks curve away from the railway, half hidden under drifted snow. A line of trees stands with every branch outlined in frost, as if someone has drawn them carefully in white ink. The train passes without hurry, letting each scene open and close. The wheels sound smoother now. They still carry the memory of rougher track, frozen points, and cautious signals, but their rhythm has steadied. A low hum moves through the floor and into your legs, and the carriage sway becomes gentle enough to feel like breathing. You rest one hand on the window ledge and feel cool dampness under your fingertips. The corridor beyond your door is busy in a muted, morning way. Passengers are gathering belongings and folding blankets, and are discovering that socks migrate during sleep. Suitcase clasps click, paper bags rustle. A child asks whether the train is nearly there, and an adult says yes with cautious hope. Railway adults learn not to promise too much before arrival. You stand and begin your own small preparations. Your shoes go on first, then your scarf, then your dried coat. The wool feels warm from the compartment. No longer carrying the platform cold, you slide your notebook into your bag and check under the berth. Nothing remains there except a little dust and one ticket stub that is not yours. The past is always leaving tiny paperwork. A mainstream fact sits quietly inside this moment. Sleeper trains were often designed to turn night travel into useful time, allowing passengers to arrive ready for a day in another place. Yet arrival rarely feels simple. You have not merely moved across distance. You have lived inside a narrow system of beds, rails, staff, weather, and strangers. You fold the railway blanket with more care than necessary. It does not fold neatly because it has opinions. You smooth it once, then surrender. The pillow lies beside it, thin and slightly dented. The compartment looks less personal already. A room can become yours overnight, then return to being nobody's in less than a minute. The train passes through an outer suburb. Snow softens the backs of warehouses, fences, and small factories. A yard full of parked lorries sits silent under white roofs. Smoke rises from a chimney and drifts sideways. A row of houses appears close to the track, their windows glowing with morning life. Someone has cleared a path from a front door to a gate, narrow and heroic. A quirky little truth of railway endings is that passengers often become suddenly territorial about luggage racks and corridors. The same people who shared silence all night now guard their bags like medieval borderlands. It is not selfishness exactly, it is a rival anxiety wearing a practical coat. Everyone wants to be ready, even though the platform will not run away. You step into the corridor with your bag. The carpet feels firmer under the weight of morning. Other passengers stand in gentle confusion, facing different directions with similar expressions. The elderly woman with the blanket now wears a hat with a feather flattened by travel. The man in the brown sweater studies his ticket as though it may reveal prophecy. The children press close to a window, eager for the final approach. The attendant walks through the carriage, checking compartments and reminding passengers to take all belongings. Her voice remains calm, though the night has surely stretched behind her. She pauses near you and asks whether you managed any sleep. You say yes, a little. She smiles in a way that suggests a little is a respectable victory on this route, in this weather. Historians still argue whether the romance of sleeper trains comes from comfort, nostalgia, or the rare surrender of control? Perhaps it is all three. Perhaps it is also the knowledge that many people briefly shared a fragile routine inside a powerful machine. Nobody aboard commanded the storm, yet everyone adapted to it, cup by cup, stop by stop, mile by mile. The train slows past a wide rail yard and lines of track spread out under snow, some polished by use, others buried and still. Carriages stand on sidings, their windows dark. A locomotive rests with frost along its roof, looking tired but dignified. Signals shine through the grey air, red, yellow, and green, each light softened by falling flakes. You watch railway workers moving between tracks in bright coats. One carries a shovel, another checks a switch stand. Their boots leave dark holes in the snow. They look small among the rails and signals, yet the whole morning depends on such small figures. The train glides past them, warm and full of passengers preparing to step into their own concerns. A station sign flashes by, then another. The city is near now. Buildings grow taller, closer, more numerous. Snow clings to ledges, shop awnings, parked cars, and telephone boxes. Traffic moves slowly on a road beside the line, headlights glowing in the grey. People on pavements bend into the cold, carrying bags, newspapers, and the private bravery of ordinary mornings. The public address speaker crackles one last time. The voice announces the approaching terminal and reminds passengers to check their belongings. It thanks everyone for their patience during severe weather. The words drift through the carriage with familiar formality. Several passengers begin moving at once, then stop because the corridor is narrow. The sleeping car teaches patience until its final minute. You return to the compartment for one last glance. The little room is nearly empty of you. The curtain hangs half open, the reading lamp is off, the sink lid is closed. The paper wedge near the latch remains on the table, a tiny invention completing its service. You pick it up, smile, and slip it into your pocket like a ridiculous souvenir. The brakes begin their long final sigh. The wheels sing lower and lower. Buildings slide past more slowly. A platform appears alongside the train, crowded with bundled figures, luggage trolleys, and station staff moving through slush. The roof above the platforms traps the sound, turning brakes, footsteps, and announcements into a soft, metallic echo. The train stops with a gentle settling motion, not dramatic, not triumphant, just arrived. For a few seconds, nobody moves, as if the body needs time to believe motion has ended. Then doors open, cold air enters, and the carriage wakes completely. Suitcases lift, scarves tighten. People thank the attendant, some warmly, some sleepily, some with the solemn gratitude of those who survived poor coffee. You step down onto the platform. The ground feels strangely still beneath your feet. After hours of swaying, stillness has its own motion. You adjust your bag and breathe in the station air. It smells of snow, diesel, wet wool, hot brakes, coffee from a kiosk, and the mineral dampness of a busy winter terminal. The sleeper car stands beside you, streaked with snow and ice. Its windows are fogged by the warmth of many compartments. For one night, it held fear, boredom, hunger, kindness, impatience, and sleep. Now it waits to be cleaned, restocked, checked, and sent back into service. A moving shelter becomes a working object again. You walk along the platform under the high roof, where snow has blown in at the edges and gathered in grey piles. Announcements echo above you. Passengers spread into the station, each carrying a private version of the journey. Some will remember the delay, some will remember breakfast, some will remember branches scraping glass in the dark. You will remember the hush. Near the concourse, you look back once. The train sits quietly, long and weather-marked, as if nothing unusual has happened. That is perhaps its final trick. It has crossed a storm, held its passengers, trusted its staff, and reached the city. Yet it remains modest. Railways are good at that. They make endurance look like a timetable problem. You step into the station's warmer light, where clocks hang above ticket windows and people hurry beneath them. Outside the doors, the city waits under snow, slowed batterie. Inside your coat pocket, the folded paper wedge rests like a tiny relic of the night. You carry it without needing to explain why. Now the journey begins to loosen its grip. The rails no longer move beneath you. The berth no longer rocks your shoulders. The window no longer holds fields and signals in passing light. Yet the rhythm stays in your body for a while, soft and steady, as if some part of you is still travelling. The station sounds grow softer in your mind. Footsteps blur into a low murmur. Voices pass like distant announcements heard through sleep. You imagine the sleeper car resting behind you, its compartments emptying, its blankets gathered, its windows slowly clearing. Snow slides from the roof in quiet folds. A worker closes a door with a padded thud. The storm outside has become gentler now, more like a curtain than a force. Flakes drift through the station entrance, turning in the air before melting on the floor. The city beyond is pale, muffled and patient. Chimneys breathe, buses crawl, people cross streets carefully, each one leaving brief dark marks in the snow. You let your thoughts slow to the pace of falling flakes. No timetable needs your attention. No signal asks to be watched. No suitcase needs to be lifted for a moment. The night has carried you as far as it can, and now it releases you kindly. The warmth of the carriage remains as a memory around your shoulders. Picture the train growing smaller in your mind, not disappearing, just resting at a quiet distance. Its lamps glow softly, its wheels cool under the platform roof. Its corridors lie empty, peaceful and still. Beyond the glass, the last snowflakes drift sideways, then settle without hurry. You breathe in, you breathe out. The long rail song fades into silence, leaving only a calm, white morning and the feeling of being safely delivered through the storm. Sleep well.